Hello, Mrs. C here. I'm an ELL teacher at Florida Connections Academy. Today, I'm going over the Unit 6 Identifying and Describing Shapes, Lesson 10 Math Project Art Portfolio Assignment. This is a math assignment that you'll complete at home and turn into your teacher for a grade. Now, this assignment is a bit bigger than usual, so you have 3 days to complete this portfolio. So, we're going to go over the portfolio today step by step, but remember, you don't have to do it all at one time. You can take your time and do each step at home each day. Okay, so let's look at the rubric to see what we need to do to get the best grade possible. Right here, it says, the student provides a clear, logical, and precise explanation of his or her reasoning and planning. Wow, what a mouthful. Today, you'll be making a blueprint of a real life object. So, a blueprint is a plan, a drawing of something that someone will build one day. So, you need to tell your teacher the real life object you chose, tell him or her why you chose that, and how you're going to plan a picture that shows what it will be like when it's built. The next section says the portfolio project demonstrates excellent modeling and or use of tools. So you can use many different tools to plan your blueprint. You can use grid paper, there's some included in the lesson. You can use math blocks, you can cut out pictures from magazines. You can show your teacher that you used different tools to plan your blueprint. The last section says the portfolio project demonstrates a fully developed understanding of shapes. So that's a big part of this project. You need to include 5 shapes in your blueprint: a rectangle, a square, a circle, a triangle, and a hexagon. So when we draw a blueprint, we usually use shapes to represent objects or parts. So you're going to need to include those 5 shapes in your plan for your real life object. So before we begin going over the project, you might be thinking, Mrs. C, what is a blueprint? Let's look at some examples now. Here is a blueprint of a house. You can see I don't see real items like a couch or a refrigerator or a bathtub. I see shapes that represent those objects. Right here, this big triangle shows you that this is going to be the shape of the ceiling and the roof. It's going to go up and down like a triangle. Right over here, these 2 squares and these 2 circles, they represent a kitchen sink and the drains that let the water flow downward into the pipes. Here's another circle and another one. These are in the bathroom and they probably represent sinks or maybe countertops. You can see there are a lot of squares showing the shapes of different bedrooms. Right over here, it's showing probably a washer or a dryer. So we use shapes to represent objects in a blueprint. This is an example of a house, but a house is not the only type of blueprint you could make. Here's an example of a vehicle. This is an SUV or sport utility vehicle, kind of like a truck with a back, right? An enclosed back. So you can see there are a lot of shapes on this blueprint too. I see circles for the tires. I see some triangles here on the rim. I see a square on this back window. So there are a lot of different shapes on this blueprint as well, just like they're going to be on your blueprint. All right, let's look at one more example. This is my favorite. This is a blueprint of a classroom. On this blueprint, you can see here's a circle. It's representing a table, right? Here's a rectangle. It looks like it's representing a sand and water play area. So there are a lot of shapes on any type of blueprint you choose. You just have to make sure whichever real life object you choose, you include those shapes and you show your teacher that you know the names and what types of shapes each part is. So that brings us to the next part of our project. Once you've chosen what you want to do your blueprint on, you're going to need to plan out the different parts. Remember, they're going to be much smaller. You're just drawing a picture, so it doesn't have to be the size of a car or the size of a house. You're going to draw a small picture that represents how you would build the real life object. So let's talk about the parts of a car. I'm going to choose a car. I'm going to make a list of the parts that I need to include on my blueprint. So number 1, I wrote tires. Tires are really important in a car. So I have tires and I have the shape right next to tires. Those tires are going to be circles. Number two, I have doors. I need to get inside that car, right? So my doors are going to be in the shape of rectangles and squares. The door handles, the part you open the door with, those are going to be rectangles. Every car has windows. Some of mine are going to be squares, and some of mine are going to be triangles too, or at least look like triangles on my blueprint. Lights. I think lights on cars come in all sorts of neat shapes nowadays, so I chose to make those hexagons. I could have chosen maybe the rims on the tires to be hexagons instead, because that's kind of a tricky shape to include. But I decided my front and tail lights, that's the back, I decided those were going to be hexagons. And then for my rims, those smaller silver parts on most cars, I decided I was going to draw some little triangles inside those as well, just so I had some more triangles on my blueprint. Okay, so that's another part of my assignment, right? In that rubric, it said I understood the parts and I listed them and I understood the shape names. So now I need to print out that grid paper and actually make my blueprint. Now, since I chose a car and I made my list of shapes, that's what I drew on my blueprint. You want your list and your actual blueprint to match. So here's my blueprint of a car. You can see it's flat. It's 2D, so it's not 3D. It's not a real car. You can see it also doesn't look exactly like a car because these triangular windows, they might not be actual triangles on a car, right? They go across the front and the back. They're almost more like rectangles sometimes, although my van does have some triangular shaped windows in the back too. But on a blueprint, since shapes are flat, some things look a little different than they do on a real life object. So let's go through my list and make sure that I included everything. The first thing I had were the tires, and I said they were circles. Here are my tires. You can only see two because this is a flat picture. A car really has four, of course, but you can only see two on my flat blueprint, and they are both circles. So check, I took care of my first part. My second part was the door or doors, and I said I was going to make them both rectangles and squares. You can see this door is longer, like a rectangle. This door has equal sides, so it's a square. So check, I've got my second part taken care of as well. Let's look at number three. Door handles. Those are going to be rectangles. Yeah, here are my door handles that I pull my door open with. They're both shaped like rectangles, so we're good to go with that one too. All right, now my lights. Remember, that's where I said I was going to squeeze those hexagons in there because those are odd shapes. So I drew a hexagon with 6 sides in the front and a hexagon with 6 sides in the back for my lights. Oh, and I think I skipped a part. Uh-oh, my windows. My windows are going to be squares and triangles. Here's my square. Here are my 2 triangular windows. So I've got those two. All right, last part. The rims, that's that inner part, right? So inside my rims, kind of hard to see, I drew some little triangles in there on the design. So I have those triangular shapes there as well. So you're going to want to explain to your teacher, just like I explained to you and explained to your learning coach, the different shapes that you included on your blueprint and what parts they represent. So my square is a window. My rectangle is a door handle. My circle is a tire. You're going to want to go over those shapes so your teacher knows that you definitely understand those shape names and you definitely drew them correctly on your blueprint. Now remember, you have 3 days to complete this. So you might spend one day going over real life objects and ideas and maybe modeling it with some of those tools. You might spend your second day going ahead and writing down that list of parts you need to include, brainstorming about what shapes they could be, and you might want to spend your third day actually printing out that grid paper and drawing your blueprint. Once you get all of that together and collected, have your learning coach help you upload all of the information, submit it to your teacher, and I know you're going to get a great grade on this portfolio assignment. I hope that you found this video helpful. Good luck, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.